Yield back.
Thank you to the ranking member. So I wanted to ask a couple of additional questions. You know, prior to 2017, when the GEC was created, what was actually the mechanism that was used? And if that was sufficient, what types of duplications of effort would GEC actually have, or what makes GEC so special?
Sure. With the caveat that I was working on specific counterterrorism issues before 20.
And where was that with, my apologies, for the counterterrorism CT operations?
Yeah, I was the principal deputy of the Center for Strategic Counterterrorism Communications, and in 2016 I was in the Office of Policy Planning, so I was not as directly involved. To my knowledge, there was no entity in the executive branch that had the ability to convene the interagency, that was specifically tasked with doing the work that the Global Engagement Center does. And I can only point you to the relative absence of reports like the reports that we've done on Russia, the PRC in particular, and other topics before 2017 when the GEC was created.
So one of the things that you guys do is that you look and assess third-party violations of these types of propaganda and misinformation campaigns that are going on. And some of those that can be listed are social media organizations like VK as an example and things like this. Why wouldn't we list TikTok, a foreign-created social media platform that's being utilized for these types of propaganda and misinformation campaigns, as a violator assessed by GEC?
Sure. So just to clarify, the Global Engagement Center doesn't have any regulatory role. We don't assess social media.
But you do actually go in and review those who are actually kind of misrepresenting things so that we know exactly how to identify and then counter, correct?
What we do is we identify the tools in the toolbox that our adversaries use for information manipulation. And in fact, we have sponsored work that shows how TikTok is being used by the PRC. What we don't do is anything in the regulatory space. We don't either recommend.
But you do see that TikTok is in fact being utilized in this manner to be pushed by the PRC as a mechanism to have a cultural impact by utilizing misinformation and propaganda.
We have, I believe, supported a report that highlights the role that TikTok plays in the PRC's effort to reshape the global media environment. Yes.
And you know, it's interesting, going along that thread, knowing this, would you advise, or would you, coming from a policy background obviously, there are bills that the Republicans are putting forward where they would want to ban TikTok. Now, I'm not asking you to say that this is a policy that you thereby would create, but do you think that that should be something which is effective in trying to tamp down some of the utilization of TikTok as this mechanism?
The GEC and I don't take any position on regulatory matters. I can only reiterate that TikTok is one of the tools in the toolbox in the PRC's broader effort to reshape the global.
So I'll take that as a yes, that if we were to get rid of that, that limits the toolbox and what they're actually able to utilize. Your office's mission is to direct, lead, synchronize, integrate, and coordinate U.S. federal government efforts to recognize, understand, expose, and counter foreign state and non-state propaganda. Are there other offices that you're aware of within any other U.S. agency that you can identify that monitors, exposes, or counters this misinformation?
So we work with many partners that do parts of this, but we're the ones who do this sort of exclusively because that's our congressional mandate. We work with partners in the intelligence community who look at adversarial information manipulation. We work with partners who look at the broader information environment.
So there's others that do this. So there is potentially then, and I apologize for interrupting, but there is then potentially redundancies, because I know that I sit on the Armed Services Committee as well, and I sit on the Intelligence Special Operations Subcommittee, and I won't talk about anything which is classified in this unclassified setting, but we know that there's other areas who do exactly the same thing in a very similar manner. Does that not create a redundancy in some ways?
I don't believe that there are redundancies. We work with partners that, the information environment's dynamic and it touches on almost every aspect of our existence. So we don't duplicate the work that our colleagues in the intelligence community do. We don't duplicate the work that our colleagues in international broadcasting do. They complement our work, and we try to complement theirs, but I would argue that it's not a redundancy, and we don't duplicate each other's work.
Well, I certainly look at working with your office and making sure that we can continue these discussions to look at exactly what it is that we're funding and what the benefits of this is in a way that would stop the PRC and other adversarial nations from utilizing platforms, as we've discussed, to help to be weaponized in their misinformation campaigns. But again, I go back to my original thing, which is that it all starts within the U.S. government and the messaging and the actual foreign policy that we're promoting that's being utilized against us, because we are making the mistakes of not considering Iran to be the largest state sponsor of terror and not calling them out for that. We are making mistakes when we don't immediately identify that Iran plays a role with Hamas, and we are making a mistake when we don't look at China, Russia, Iran, and North Korea as adversarial nations as opposed to competitors, and then we start abandoning our Americans behind. So it's our own foreign policy, in my opinion, and our own actions that give credence and actually support exactly what is being spun around and used against us. And I think that it starts a good, strong foreign policy, and that will help us to control the narratives that we put forward. With that, I yield back. Sir, anything for you?
I don't think you want to yield to me. You're the chairman.
I'll be happy to let you ask more questions if you want to go a second.
I'm
third,
good.
fourth.
I'm ready to go to closing if you are, Chairman.
All right, sounds good. Want to give you the opportunity. I mean, come on. Got to make sure that my 325th or 82nd buddy has something. I thank the witness for the valuable testimony and the members for their questions. The member of the subcommittee may have some additional questions for the witnesses, and we will ask you to respond to those in writing. Pursuant to committee rules, all members may have 5 days to submit statements, questions, and extraneous materials for record, subject to the link of limitations. Without objection,
Yeah, and I just want to
refer
make
to
sure
you,
you're
Mr.
not going
Crowe.
to adjourn.
Mr.
Yeah.
Crowe.
Okay.
the committee will refer to you, Mr. Crowe, as the ranking member.